The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Coming at you all the way live. Welcome to Melanated Politics.
From PG County, Maryland, the DMV, this is David Harper.
From the east side of Compton, California, I am Eric Clark. Thank you so much for tuning in. Melanated Politics has been moved from Friday to Sunday afternoon. To those of you out there that this will be your first time tuning in to Melanated Politics, every week we take pride and we look forward so much to bringing you local and national politics that actually applies to the black community. So go ahead and call in at 323-293-3375. Today we will be discussing who recently threw their hat in for the candidacy of the presidency of the United States of America. Also, we beg a very important question, which may be somewhat controversial. Will black people ever unite politically? But first, the Michael Cohen hearing was more fake than Sharknado.
Elijah Cummings did a good job at the hearing with Cohen. He did a really good job maintaining Baltimore's own Elijah Cummings, chairman of Cummings. He did a great job in maintaining. The tempers were flaring a little bit, but definitely there were some really, really detailed things that came to light.
But the fix-it man himself, Michael Cohen, with 10 years private attorney for Donald Trump, personal, intimate relationship with Donald Trump. One good reason why I loved the hearing and I was so glued in, I was focused and I paid attention, is because this is a person who has intimate knowledge of Donald John Trump, the president of the United States. So I was really focused in on what he had to say. And the hearing just brought out so much. It just a lot of things that we were curious about. We had a chance to hear from this guy. And although he's a liar and he lied, and it was great. You mentioned Chairman Congressman Elijah Cummings.
Baltimore.
He did in Baltimore.
Yes, indeed.
Did an admirable job, especially when he opened as well as when he closed. But Cohen, oh my goodness, Cohen. Like I said, it was like Sharknado. It was that fake.
I think on the Republican side, the thing that was revealing about the whole hearing was, I think everybody thought that Trump was like you always say, snake in the grass.
Snake in the grass.
Trump was that, and Cohen just solidified everything that we thought. But I think the thing that was most telling was in the hearing, he was the most relaxed. It seemed like he had all the weight off his shoulders, because he's like, listen, I'm going to jail, so I'm just going to speak freely. And the thing that was so powerful during the whole hearing is that two things. One, Donald Trump ran his organization and ran his team, his circle. He runs his business similar to a mob boss. It almost felt like, am I watching the scene out of The Godfather, where or Godfather, I forget which Godfather it was, when you had the dude on the stand saying what Michael Corleone is doing, and Michael Cohen was just being free, and he told the Republicans, listen, I've been in the same boat you're in now. You're defending him at all costs. No one here is asking me right now about Trump. All you guys are asking me is about me. I let all my dirt out.
And also the checks he produced, not only with Trump's name on them, but also with his son's name on them. So that was just...
Here we go.
That was dramatic. That was very dramatic. But his former boss, Michael Cohen's former boss, obviously Donald Trump, based on Cohen's personal dealings with Donald Trump, his interactions, what I like I said, what I loved about the hearing was he actually got straight to the point. There was many outlets who had it, many outlets who were there who aired it, but CNN also was there. And just for a small portion, let's see what they had to say about what Cohen said in the hearing.
Mr. Trump is a racist. The country has seen Mr. Trump court white supremacists and bigots. You have heard him call poorer countries shitholes. In private, he is even worse. He once asked me if I could name a country run by a black person that wasn't a shithole. This was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way. And he told me that black people would never vote for him because they were too stupid. And yet, I continued to work for him.
Okay, so this is why melanated politics is so important. This is why black people, the black community, anyone with melanin in their skin, especially if you're descendants of slaves, this is why being in tune to politics is very important, because you have a man who does not have any type of dignity, any type of respect towards black people, towards African Americans, people of African descent, running the most powerful country. And the reason why that's dangerous is because Donald Trump has set us back so many years. And don't get me wrong, it's not like we have the right to vote, we have civil rights, we've made a lot of accomplishments, but we all know there's so much more that needs to be done. So much more that needs to be done. And we have a man that really dislikes black people, has disdain for black people, has no respect for black people. You saw this in his actions, but now you're hearing it intimately. And so that's why we have to stick together. That's why we have to vote. And don't get me wrong, it's not about perfection, but we can't have another man like this in the White House. And for those who stand on the sideline and say race doesn't matter, why are we putting race in anything? You're race baiting, identity politics. Listen, that right there is proof. If you don't recognize our identity, then it's going to get real political.
And for those who also say that Donald Trump has had African Americans, that has black folks that he's worked with, that he's helped, that he's had in his circles or whatever, those are props. Let's peel the scab off. These people are props. Speaking of props, Freedom Caucus leader, Congressman Mark Meadows, snake in the grass.
You mean, send Obama back to Kenya, Mark Meadows? Mark Meadows, who one of the original birthers, several times in different statements in front of, rallies in town halls. He says, I don't know, where Obama's from. We're going to send him back to Kenya. We're going to just send him back to Kenya. That's his mentality. And it's, again, this is, as much as we talk about Trump, you heard us talk about Steve King of Iowa. You heard us talk about Steve Scalise of Louisiana. So, yeah.
And one of the strangest things about this snake in the grass, Freedom Caucus leader, Congressman Meadows, is, as I said, Donald Trump uses black folks as props. Now, go back and watch the hearing for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Go back and watch it for yourself so you'll get more detailed information and you can understand it more clearly, because it does take some detailed paying attention to. Now, his response, Congressman Meadows, his response to Michael Cohen's allegations of Donald Trump being a racist was time out. That was his response. So we'll talk about that. We'll get off into Mark Meadows, snake in the grass. We'll get off into his response to Congressman Cohen. But right now we have a call. Welcome to Melanated Politics. David Clark. I'm Eric Clark. David Harper.
We're the same person sometimes. We're brothers.
David Harper, Eric Harper, David Clark.
David Clark, there we go.
Welcome to Melanated Politics, caller. Thank you for calling in.
How you brothers doing? I guess just still this morning, because I'm calling from California, too.
We're doing great.
Are y'all doing okay?
We're doing great.
Thanks. We hear you faintly. Just talk up a little bit. Thank you.
I most certainly will. Can you hear me much better now?
Oh, yes, we can. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you calling in.
Okay. Here's my catch on all this. So I don't seen all this theater before. All right. I think us as black people, we are focusing on the wrong thing, and I'm serious about this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't care if you got a Republican or a Democrat, if they walking in that White House, nothing really changed for us. That's it. I mean, that's point blank. I mean, if you don't like actual facts, just go back and look at history, and that's including Obama too. So here's my thing. There's no saviors coming to save us as people. And the way he said, some things are just white folks' business. We got to get our business together. Now, I mean, I looked at the hearing as well as anybody else. My adversaries are thinking and what they are doing. Ask either one of y'all brothers. Have you ever worked for a racist?
Have we ever hold that thought for 1 second? We're putting our
keep talking. Hey, but
okay.
as far as what you were saying, as far as what you were saying, and thanks again for calling in. What are part of the solutions?
Okay, and that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Solutions. I think let's just make it small.
Okay.
You got your household, right?
Yes.
You got your household. You got your wife. You got your children. You got to study on the education. You got to study on how you go run your household, how you clean your household up. And just think about if you just focus on what the neighbors are doing in the neighborhood and you're not really focused on your own household and your own household is not clean and your own closet needs to be straightened out, I think we spend too much delicate time and important time worrying about these people historically for 400-something years have shown us his face. There's nothing Donald Trump can do to me that has not been done to my ancestors. I remember when this country was 98% racist, and we still survive. I think we focus on that too much. And I am a person who believes what you think of is what you become.
Okay.
And I don't want to waste no more time on Mr. Trump. I don't waste time on us.
What's your name again, caller? And thank you for calling in. What's your name again, please?
My name is Jay.
Jay, thanks for calling in.
Jay, you made some very interesting points. And putting myself in your shoes and just being an open-minded type of guy that's objective. I hear that. Would you ever tell a Jewish person they need to stop talking about Hitler? Would you tell the Jewish people, let me finish, would you tell Jewish people that they need to tear down the Jewish Holocaust Museum, stop airing Schindler's List every year? Would you tell them that?
That's, again, come back to that first point I said. That's them folks' business. Our business has never been taken care of. See, I don't have time to focus on other people's business when my business is not been focused on. Like when you got, when we try to associate ourselves with other people, traumatic experience.
Yes, sir.
We don't have time to focus on that because ours is, to me, is so much worse. It's not even important.
You're right, but my point I'm making is, if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. We're not bringing up the past or history because we're bitter or we want to make someone cry or we want to make someone start praise dancing in church. It's necessary, and our history has been hidden from us. Everything we talked about, we didn't learn in school. This is not taught to us. And that's one of the reasons why we degrade ourselves and the self-respect is lacking. Because when you look at Black Wall Street in the 20s and the 30s, when you look at when everyone lived with their grandmother, 5 and 6 families, we were together. But we know where we came from. When a lot of our people came from the South to Chicago and to California and other places, we didn't say, we're just going to stop talking about what happened. So thank you for your comment.
That's not what I'm saying, my brother. But that's not what I'm saying, my brother.
Okay. So
that's not what I'm saying. I am a student of Dr. Henry Clark.
That's right.
I am a student of the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad.
That's right.
So that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is we go forward with this,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we should pass our information on. We should pass our history on. But our history don't start here in the United States. Our history starts way before. We the first people on this planet. And so what I'm saying is I don't want to be stuck into a certain situation where we just focusing on that situation. When you go into Africa, you can't even use the word kafir due to the fact you'll go to jail.
Right.
But we use that same derogatory term in our music form and all our art form and all that. And that gets back to that Schindler List thing you were talking about. When you got 50 and 30 people be killed in Chicago and you have a president, you got Detroit having bad water, and we had a president who was in the term who looked just like us. And that situation was not cleared up then, and it's not cleared up now. So we can point the fingers at all the races we want to, but I'm just like when it comes down to the end of the day, we going to have to clean our own house up.
And here's the thing, I'm going to end it on this note. First of all, I want to thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate your call. Keep watching and keep calling in. Hope you call in next week as well. The point I want you to think about, and the point we're going to leave at, is this. Everything you're saying is true, but we have to be armed. We have to be prepared politically, socially, mentally, spiritually, the whole 9 yards. Because you just mentioned Flint, particularly because I lived in Detroit. That part of that was because we slept. We did not get out the vote like we needed to. We had a for lack of a better word, we had one of the biggest devils. And I can call a killer who he was, Governor Snyder, who let that water happen. And so what I'm trying to say is, we have to fight on several fronts, and I think that's all we're trying to get out. We're trying to fight on several fronts. Your point is right. We do need to go and understand how strong and how we are from our roots in Africa to where we are now in this country. But we have to fight on many fronts, and we're going to try to keep it balanced here on Melanated Politics. Thank you so much for calling in. Please call in next week.
Thank you for calling in. Every single point you made was fantastic.
Yes.
Call in next week for us.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love that call. I love that comment. Jay, thank you for calling in. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Call again next week. We're going to keep it going.
We're going to keep it going.
We're going to definitely keep it going.
We're going to keep it going. Okay.
So when we left off with Mark Meadows.
Snake in the grass.
And we talked about.
Snake in the grass.
And we talked about Cohen. And I know.
We talk about the props.
We talked about the props.
We talk about Donald Trump uses black folk as props. Mm-hmm. Mark Meadows, his response to Cohen's racist allegations regarding Donald Trump, you know, we were driving through Chicago. We were driving through a neighborhood. He said, I don't see how black people can live like this.
Right.
I wouldn't rent to black people, et cetera, et cetera. Someone said, Donald Trump, why don't you think black people would vote for me? They're stupid, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the response that the Freedom Caucus leader, okay, we have to say it again, the birther, the OG birther, okay? We need to send him back to Kenya, wherever he's from. The footage is out there. Look it up for yourself. Yes. Okay?
Yes.
So another part of that hearing, which really, really got to me, was Brenda Lawrence.
Detroit. Michigan.
Brenda Lawrence.
She's from Michigan.
Is the one who called him out. So we have to call out things for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you wouldn't say 1 + 1 is 3 if you know it's 2.
No, you wouldn't.
We have to call out certain things. It's like going to the doctor. You have to know what the problem is, not just the symptoms. And once you get that together, then your health will get better because you were diagnosed correctly. And I say that as a metaphor with every point that we're talking about. Now, going back to one of our heroes, Representative Brenda Lawrence. Called this guy out. Called him out. It was amazing. And actually, PBS NewsHour, along with other news outlets, they were there. We have a small portion. And instead of us just talking about where is she from again? Let the people know.
She's from,
for those that don't know.
She's from Michigan, right outside Detroit, or in Detroit. I believe she's from Southfield, Michigan. I believe that's where she's from, which is outside of Detroit, suburb of Detroit.
Well, anyway, Brenda Lawrence called this man out like an umpire or a referee. Let's take a look.
This was not my intention.
Ms. Lawrence.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to put on the record as being a black American and having endured the public comments of racism from the sitting president As being a black person, I can only imagine what's being said in private. And to prop up one member of our entire race of black people and say that that nullifies that is totally insulting. And in this environment of expecting a president to be inclusive and to look at his administration speaks volume. So I have some questions.
Lynn Patton, Trump HUD official, former wedding planner. Wow. She was standing there used as a prop. Wow. And then also, one thing about this guy, Congressman Meadows, he also, when he was speaking to Elijah Cummings, he said, to prove he was not a racist, it's the whole I have a black friend type of deal. To prove he was not a racist, ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls, he said, I'm paraphrasing, Elijah Cummings, aren't we friends?
Yes.
He stated something like that.
That's what he stated.
And then, like I said, one of the reasons why we showed that video is because seeing is believing. Visually, visual messages are so powerful. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why we showed that video. As far as Lynn Patton, going back to Lynn Patton, that was used as a he had her stand behind him, or on the side of him, or however you saw that. She was standing. She did not say one word. She was actually used as a prop. He said, "Look, Lynn Patton, I'm paraphrasing, because she likes that, because her and Donald Trump are friends and they get along and blah blah blah. How can he be racist?" But she was standing there as a prop. You just saw that, according to Representative Brenda Lawrence. But the bottom line is this. When I saw Lynn Patton standing there in that hearing, I thought I was watching The Maid on Get Out.
Okay. The thing that's deep about that, sidebar, Get Out, the maid was co-opted by the white grandmother.
She didn't talk that much. No, and that's the thing that's really... as a metaphor.
As a metaphor, but that's the thing
you have to scratch the surface.
And that's why that metaphor is deep. That all of that is deep. It was a joke, but it was deep. It was a lot of realness to it.
And then she went on Fox News and put on a top hat and a cane and continued to speak for those who don't speak for all of us, that just speak for themselves.
It's important as we talk about all the politics, sort of like what Jay said. Because Jay, I just want to say thank you so much for your call. All of this matters because this is where we're living, this is what we're dealing with, and we have to arm ourselves. We can't close our eyes, we can't shut our ears. And the Trump testimony, if you're black, you're sitting down like, why is this even important? Politics and policies control has been a big part of why we have been struggling for a long time, and who's running it makes a difference.
And also, the majority of the United States of America is still Caucasian.
Yes.
Okay, Hispanics that are coming over here, anywhere between males between 18 and 21, anywhere between 50,000 and 75,000 per year. The Republicans assume that they're going to vote Democrat. They're going to vote for the Democrats. So, as we've been saying on the show, repetition. We've been saying it. We've been repetitive. That it's called the darkening of America. So that's one of the reasons why you hear all this rhetoric and different things like that. So we're speaking to that. We live in 2019, and there's an obligation to call balls and strikes. After that, obviously, there has to be a solution. After that, but before you get your medicine, you have to find out what your illness is.
Absolutely.
And one of our illnesses as a people is lack of knowledge of self.
Absolutely.
In our history, American history, something that has not been put in the school books, in most college programs, whether that be historic black colleges or Ivy League schools or the California state schools or et cetera. So now, moving on from that, 2020, the 2020 elections are right around the corner. In our previous show, we've already announced, mm-hmm. We've already announced for those that didn't know, all the prior Democrats that put their hats in the ring. But there's been more. There's been more. There's been more big names. Bernie Sanders,
Amy Klobuchar, Julian Castro, and There's a few more, but we're going to stay focused on Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is another person. She was first.
There's Elizabeth Warren. There's Castro.
There's Castro. There's Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren.
We're going to break those down in detail. Certain policies they have. Do they have an opportunity to win? Will they lose, etc.? Right now, we have a call coming in. Welcome to Melanated Politics. David Harper, Eric Clark. Thank you, caller, for calling in. Tell us how you really feel.
Good morning, Mr. Clark and Mr. Harper. This is Kevin Harris.
Good morning, Kevin.
Hey,
Happy
Kevin.
Sunday to you, brother.
Hey, good afternoon, sir.
Happy Sunday to you also.
Thank you.
You know, I was just listening on the show, and I'd like to just make a few points the way we always share perspectives, which is a really great thing. But for number one, I understand what you guys are saying about politics. And what a lot of people don't understand is politics really determines the health, education, and welfare of a people. And it's the one tool that you have to enact change without violence. So it's a necessary evil to a certain extent. And what people don't understand, when you deal with the health, education, and welfare of people, it really has an impact to the extent that it affects overall life expectancy. And I think that's really an important indicator of your effectiveness in terms of your political engagement. But one thing I wanted to say to just laugh, to formalize your perception of this patent being a prop. Well, off the record, she did sign a non-disclosure agreement in advance to not say anything about Trump, the transition, or anything.
Talk about
so we can just move beyond that. Yeah, the term prop is formal. And so I just thought I'd formalize that perception. That wasn't just a figment of the imagination. It was kind of indicated on paper, so we can move beyond that one.
Yes,
well, Kevin, first, thank you so much for calling into Melanated Politics. It's good to obtain some of your wisdom once again. No, I have a two-part question. Did you hear Jay, intelligent brother that called in, made some very good, fantastic points? Did you listen to that call? And if so, give us your bottom line thoughts about Jay's call and what he had to say, because I said he made some very good points.
And he did. I listened to Jake, and I'm glad I was able to turn the program on in time to hear his comments. And I understand what Jake is saying, but something I respectfully disagree with, because a certain degree of engagement is necessary to facilitate political and social change. And, you know, Melanated Politics is the type of show that's necessary to help develop an informed electorate, you know, because there is a perception of racial inequality that's true. And one journal that I read is an academic journal called the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education. It's a really intensive publication that looks at racial equality, not just from a commentary or an opinion standpoint, but they actually make steps to quantify racial equality. And the way they do that, they look at various social factors, with the white measurement of that social factor being the baseline as a measure of comparison. From every social factor, from incarceration, recidivism, healthcare, educational attainment, and even life expectancy. And I think the one thing my friend Jake kind of overlooked is whenever you're striving for equality, you have to have a baseline as a basis for comparison.
Absolutely.
Something to compare yourself to. It's just like when you're driving in traffic. If a cop sees you speeding, well, obviously he made a comparison to how the rest of the traffic was moving at the legal speed, and you zooming along. So you kind of like make the basis for comparison obvious, and that's why he pulls you over and give you the ticket.
Absolutely.
But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Kevin, listen, I always love when you call.
You have a question for Kevin?
Man, hey, Kevin, generally if I ask a question to Kevin, we go on, because me and Kevin go, Kevin starts, I'm rambling here. Kevin, when Kevin starts talking, I start talking, the back and forth can be long-winded.
Right.
What I wanted you to do, when we get to our next topic, because you called in, I was hoping you were going to call in on the next one. We're about to talk about the presidential candidates. Really quick. Out of all the ones you've seen put their hats in the race, really quick.
Great question.
Who do you feel, as far as like, if you like any of them, who do you like? Or who do you dislike the most? Just real quick, if you can.
Who has a chance to beat Donald Trump? Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Castro.
Well, I think
Joe Biden.
Looking at it, I would say Joe Biden or Kamala Harris have the best chances. And the reason I look at that is because with Elizabeth Warren, she's kind of going to be the victim of a smear campaign, which kind of caused Hillary and made her stay on her heels the whole time. She really wasn't ready for that.
Right.
So she's in a situation where she'll spend her time defending her Native American ancestry or whatever that case was that they had the big debate about. And she really won't get to delve into the politics.
And finally, I'm pretty sure you saw the CPAC.
Exactly.
The CPAC of the CPAC crowd, and they were associating Bernie Sanders and the Democratic platform with socialism. So that's the new elephant in the room. That's the new boogeyman, socialism. Will the Democrats be defeated off the anti-socialism platform that we saw at the CPAC meeting, that we see on Fox News, and that we see peddled every day in every aspect of American media?
Yeah, and one of the things, that's a great point, is because conservatives and the right, they have a way of negotiating with a smear campaign tactic where they can take a word and turn it into a curse word. Look at socialism. Look how liberalism was done previously, to the extent that liberals started calling themselves progressives and evolved past that point just because liberal became such a smear term. They had a way where they could shape the dialogue to make liberalism say that you're going to allow your kids to have sex in class and all kind of extreme things just to define liberalism. The same with socialism. It's been turned into a curse word by the right, to the extent where America is really a pseudo-socialist country.
Right.
Because
Already.
if you look at it, you look at socialism
Social Security. Social Security.
For starters. But even just the premise of how
Medicaid,
the tax base helps others. Like when you have a fire at your house, you don't write the fire department a check when they put a fire out.
No, you don't. They
pay
by the government.
My taxes help put your fire out.
Right.
The highways you drive on, you don't write a check and pay for every mile of highway that you drive on.
Right.
It's a collective tax revenue implementation.
Right.
So America is pseudo-socialist as it is, but the thing about the right, I think they have the ability to take advantage of America that's not a part of an informed electorate and really responsive to rhetoric. And I think that's the thing Democrats have to do, is really narrowly and specifically define agendas.
Right.
And I've noticed Joe Biden, by virtue of, and Kamala Harris have an ability to be really definitive.
They do.
Inside of rhetoric. And I think they could really articulate a progressive message better than the rest.
Hey, Kevin,
my perception.
I want to say thank you, and I'm actually going to use, you're going to see me use some of your words in a few minutes.
Oh, please do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate you, Kevin. We appreciate you, Kevin.
Okay, good talking to you, brothers, as always, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you for the call.
We got to have you in here, definitely.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks for calling, Kev.
That was a great call. One thing that he mentioned that we always talk about off camera is I only think two people can actually challenge Donald Trump literally and win. That's Stacey Abrams, also Joe Biden. I believe that Joe Biden, one of the reasons why we talk about population and how many white folk and black folk, that means a lot when it comes to voting. That means a lot when it comes to population and electoral college and et cetera. It means a lot when it comes to Republicans, independents, and Democrats. I mean, why do you think they have a census?
Right.
I mean, whether it's true or false, they still have one. I mean, it does mean something.
Right.
And anytime you sell a message,
right,
it could be food, it could be an album, it could be, you're targeting a certain crowd. So when you listen to a Donald Trump, when you listen to a Stephen King, when you listen to a Jeff Sessions, when you listen to a Mark Meadows, they are targeting a certain crowd.
Absolutely.
And you know what? For the people that called in, it's not us.
No.
Okay? If it's us, it's for people like Lynn Patton, or should I say, the one that reminds us of me, the one that reminds me of the maid
from Get Out.
Get Out.
We're going to get into the presidential candidates right now. really quick, you heard me make a statement about, because I want to go back to this. You heard me call the governor, the former governor, Snyder, Rick Snyder, a devil for what he did in Flint with the Flint water crisis. And I want you to understand that's not hyperbole, because in this country, we will call Assad a devil in Syria or evil in Syria.
Speak on it.
Because he used chemical weapons, or Saddam Hussein for using chemical weapons. But what happened in Flint, Michigan with the lead water poisoned kids and babies for life, and that man is not in jail. And that man is not in jail. He was at the top. He knew what was going on. He is not in jail. So that's not hyperbole. There are young kids, young babies that will never recover. So now as we go into,
I get that. Okay, and that you're very passionate about this. Obviously, you've lived in Detroit. Mm-hmm. Okay, you've lived in Michigan. Mm-hmm. Okay, obviously you called him a devil. You must have saw some horns. Okay,
I saw a lot of horns. I saw a lot of big horns, a lot of mini horns.
Based on the evidence. Okay, now that begs now it begs the next question. Since we all know through empirical, undeniable evidence that this guy caused that, okay? And we see what's going on, and we all can agree on some things, okay? Criminal justice reform, I mean this politically speaking, it begs the next question. Will black folk ever unite politically or in general at all?
Okay. Before we get to that, because I'm gonna be real quick with the presidential candidates. I know we got to get into that.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna be real quick because because uniting together,
lace it together like a tennis shoe
for our community. That's imperative. Knowing what's in front of us is just as an imperative. I'm gonna go through the list real quick, starting with Amy Klobuchar, really quick, from Minnesota, congressman from Minnesota. She helped President Obama in his election. I believe more on the second run. She's a practical minded type of politician. She says no to universal college. For college, she does want universal health care. She doesn't support, like I said, she doesn't support free college. She supports 2-year college and community college being free. That was she's supportive of. She's more of a pragmatist. She's not a pie in the sky type of person.
Is she for reparations? Because that seems to be the new. That seems to be the new jeans on the rack.
She hasn't talked about reparations. She hasn't been asked a question. If I'm not going to even presume.
I say that because number one, they can never pay black folk back. For 500 years of building this country for free. So
can I get on the next person real quick?
Go right ahead.
Because I've been dying to talk about
Wrap it up like a burrito. Wrap it up like a Christmas present.
Mr. Bernie Sanders. Okay, look, you heard me talk about him several times, and right now I'm just going to say flat out, I'm going to be unbiased. I really don't like Bernie Sanders because he's a fake progressive. Because if you can utter free college for everybody, if you can utter free health care, then reparations should not be a problem. But for him, it's very much a problem. He not only said it, he said it 3 times already. He's very uncomfortable with black folks getting some type of reparations. Back in 2015, he did an interview in Iowa when he said reparations, 1, would be divisive. 2, reparation has nil chance of passing. But the Green New Deal can pass. Healthcare for all can pass. A college for kids can pass. But reparations can't pass.
Okay, so what's his appeal to all these black folk that support him?
Let's just keep it. I'm gonna keep it.
He has appeal.
He has appeal
on his last run. And let's just go. I'm
gonna keep it 100 with you guys. He has appeal with a lot of younger black millennials, which is true. He has
why?
Because listen. This is something that, you know how, particularly in the black community, for those who care about the community and care about their children, they want to make sure that their children don't have it as bad as they used to.
And also, you know, we've mentioned a few people that are running for the presidency of the United States of America. There are many others which we haven't mentioned.
Right.
However, the ones we have mentioned, they have somewhat slight of a chance to win, to take down Donald Trump, to defeat Donald Trump in 2020. So let's see what happens.
And real quick, going back to Bernie, it's the umpteenth time I've seen him uncomfortable around black people. Julian Castro, former housing education, housing under HUD housing with President Obama. I can't get my words out as we talk about this. I'm still kind of a little fired up. He talked a little bit about reparations. He talked briefly a little bit about reparations, but he's a very, very thoughtful, real progressives might not like him because he's with Obama. Another person is Elizabeth Warren. She has a wealth tax plan, which is taxing wealth. The numbers are with her wealth plan, it would be basically a wealth on the top 2% of assets over 50 million, 3% of households with over 1 billion. It's a very thoughtful tax plan.
So let me ask you this. With all of that being said, with all the topics we discussed, will black folks ever unite politically? Let's get to that.
Okay, let's get to that. Now we talked about the candidates. Will black folks unite? That's very hard to politically. That's here's the thing. We talk about this. I'm from PG County, Maryland. You're from Compton. You from what part of Compton? Say what part of Compton?
I'm from the east side of Compton.
East side
Dominguez
of Compton.
High School, Roosevelt Junior High School.
All right.
Peace to everyone that went to Dominguez High, Roosevelt Junior High.
Right. I'm from PG County, Maryland.
Okay.
Friendly high school, Oxon Hill High School next door.
That's what's up.
My cousin went to Forestville High School, played ball there, the whole 9 yards. The whole
Dominguez, Compton High, and Centennial.
Right. Here we go. So, this is the deal. Black folks' experience in this country vary. You have some, you know how you said when me and Eric talked about PG County, he joked like, man, PG County is one of the wealthiest county, richest county for black folks. One of the reasons why that is because you have a lot of government jobs there. You have the government there, and it's more inclusive. Inclusivity meaning education, meaning economic, meaning housing, meaning everything. Atlanta mirrors it entertainment wise as far as wealth for black folks. The reason, and that's where it gets challenging for black folks to get together, because part of it has to do with trusting one another. Part of it's doing with, man, we've been struggling for generations, and the other part of it is what. Just to be honest with you, white folks mentally, not literally, physically, yeah, they're putting us in the ground different ways, but the white power structure mentally still having us in a bind, mentally whipping us. But
the thing about it is we have to go back to the origin. That's why I said to the caller earlier, history is extremely important. If you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. That's just life. So we have to make sure that we are aware of that. And we have to bring that to the forefront, and we have to always make our people aware of the history that hasn't been taught in school. We have been divided. We have been separated. We have been taught to despise each other. We have been taught to not trust each other. It has been systematic. Okay, it has been intentional. As a matter of fact, one of my favorites, Malcolm X, he was fantastic on the subject. Let's see what he had to say.
Who taught you, please, who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other.
Man, peace and blessings to Brother Malcolm. Let's just say this. That's so true now. And when you hear I know when black people hear us talk about the white establishment and white supremacy, you understand, black folks understand that we're not saying all white folks are racist. But for white people who are listening to this, you have to understand something. Black people didn't have a hand in writing the Constitution. Black people didn't have a hand in writing these laws. Everything that's written, everything that's done to us has been. Have
they ever took out the 3/5 of a man, or is it still exist?
That's still
okay. Keep going.
So everything that's existed in this country to the detriment of black people have to do with the white power structure. That is a fact. That's the truth. So when we're talking about that, until that changes, that's just how it is, and that's the truth of the matter.
It's also to maintain power. In order to maintain power, when it's a few of you that have the power, and then you have the people that you are oppressing that are larger in numbers with respect to population. What you have to do, according to the laws of common sense, you have to have these people turn against each other.
Absolutely,
how do you do that? You highlight the differences.
Yes.
That's one of the things that Willie Lynch, one of the slave masters who was instrumental in a lot of things that goes on today, because he passed that diabolical information to other slave masters, and that's something that was practiced. And the whole thing is to establish distrust. One of the things that he established was, you know what, only so many things were young against old, dark against light, male against female, house slave against field slave.
Yeah.
So metaphorically and even in a realistic perspective, that's still going on today. And for all of you that never heard of Willie Lynch, a lot of us have, obviously. But go ahead and do your own research and look at the Willie Lynch letter and ask yourself, is that relevant to how black folk live today? The things that we go through, good, bad, or indifferent. So do that. One of the best movies I've ever had a chance, one of the best movies I ever saw, great movie, The Great Debaters with Denzel Washington. He had a fantastic scene in that movie where he talked to his students about Willie Lynch. Let's see what he had to say.
For future breeding. Anybody know who Willie Lynch was? Anybody? Raise your hand. No one? He was a vicious slave owner in the West Indies. The slave masters in the colony of Virginia were having trouble controlling their slaves, so they sent for Mr. Lynch to teach them his methods. The word lynching came from his last name. His methods were very simple, but they were diabolical. Keep the slave physically strong, but psychologically weak and dependent on the slave master. Keep the body, take the mind. I and every other professor on this campus are here to help you to find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. Because obviously, you have lost it. That's all you need to know about me, Mr. Lowe. Class dismissed.
I love that scene, man. I love that scene
also.
I love that scene.
I love that scene.
Our minds as a community, in many ways have been lost for different reasons. We don't have the unity that we need because we don't have the love. We've been stripped, and it's been generationally. It's happened generationally. We've been slowly having to break the. When people talk about breaking the chain, that term's generally
plantation psychosis.
Yeah, plantation psychosis. And
even if you look at it right now, who do NBA players hang out with? NBA players. Mm-hmm. Who do boxers hang out? I know a few boxers and stuff. Mm-hmm. They hang out with other boxers. Mm-hmm. Who do black actors hang out with? They hang out with other black actors. How many poor black folk and well-to-do black folk hang out with each other?
Not all.
How many so-called street black hang out with the so-called bougie black folk? How many of us haven't talked to our sisters and brothers of 5 or 6 years behind money or argument? All black folk are not like this. All families are not like this. There are pockets of black people in America that are proud to be black or into African culture, teach their kids to have self-respect, integrity, and invest their money in the future of black folk, black businesses, whether that be via education or whatever. So the Willie Lynch letter, or the Willie Lynch syndrome, it has worked. It has affected the black communities in the United States, but it has not affected all of us. there are black folks, as I said, you've always had different movements in this country. And when you live in a country to where you are I don't like to say minority, because black folks are 75% people of color, melanated people, the essence of color, melanated, are 75% of the people on earth. But just for this particular sake, being a so-called minority in this country. So let me tell you, one of the biggest fears is, just sum it all up, okay? We are a spiritual people, okay? We're a spiritual people. Had we not been a spiritual people, when they first set foot on Africa, we said, no, time out. Build that wall, build that wall, build that wall. We're a spiritual people, okay? So one of the biggest fears is because Africans and black folks have power way before what we now know as electricity. So, but as far as like power right now in the United States of America, if reparations were to be handed out, we're not going to discuss how it happened, college, give everybody. We're not going into the details. But if black folks get power, whether it be political power, whether it be power economically, okay, whether it be social power, okay, whether it be powers on boards of 500 companies or black-owned businesses like Oklahoma before the riots and things like that. See, the thought process of the oppressor and those in power they're going to do us like we did them. That's why I started this off with the spirituality of black folk. Because, see, arrogant people always think, we all know arrogant people always think, you're supposed to be like me. Or whatever I do to you, or whatever I do to them, they'll do it to me. But spiritual people will not, and I don't mean nonviolent, spiritual people will not always
thank you for that
react for that to that type of action. So at the end of the day, it's about power. It's about a power structure. Okay, and the whole Willie Lynch situation. It's Willie Lynch. It's more than a letter. It's more than a man. It's a practice. It's a mentality. Okay, it's a systematic way of going about making black folks divided, not trust each other through means of torture and etc. But see, perfect segue. The reason why it's important is because the whole Willie Lynch intentions were to have this going for then and 300 years after that, which is right now.
And the thing that's so fascinating, not fascinating, but that's really important for our community to understand how much of this has been ongoing and how it should never be ignored. But just the other day, I don't think I told you this, just the other day I had a talk with one of my oldest, I have two older sisters, Elaine and Tia. My sister Tia.
Hi, Elaine. Hi, Tia. First time I heard about you ladies. Hi.
I have a younger sister, Nikki,
come out
too.
to California.
Yeah. They definitely
bring the family.
My sister Tia called me up and she was talking about the Clinton years in particular and the crime bill and the whole 9 yards and how that really, was did black folks in on so many levels. And I told her, I said, listen, you can't start from there. I said, you have to start really quick. I promise you, I know I can be long-winded.
Go ahead.
I'll be real quick.
Go ahead.
You have to start from 1968 when they assassinated Dr. King and assassinated Kennedy, and then Nixon getting in and starting.
Okay, now what is Spike Lee's film company called?
40 Acres and a Mule.
Why? Because they promised us what?
40 Acres and a Mule.
Okay, so are we supposed to just say, no, that was a long time ago? A lot of people watching the show, keeping it real, a lot of us, a lot of black folk, I love my people, you guys know this. I'm just not general, let's keep it real. A lot of black folk, everybody that owes you money, do you still need that money if you see them next year, in 5 years, or are you going to say, no, it's a long time ago? With respect to principles, right is right and wrong is wrong. So it has to be all the way right or it has to be all the way wrong. So they can never pay us back. Okay, literally. A lot of these politicians, they are either for or against reparations. As you said, Bernie Sanders is not with that. Elizabeth Warren is not with that.
Elizabeth Warren says she's with it.
No, but okay, let me tell you why she's not with it. Because she says she's with it for all people.
No, she says she's with it for black folks and Native Americans. She said those two. She said Native Americans because she pissed them off because she said she was.
But okay,
whatever,
when you look at the Olmec statues, and when you look at how you can just get in a raft and leave Africa and go over, black folk, black folks are the original Native Americans. So it's all one. It's all one and the same.
You're not going to hear no argument.
It's all one and the same. So
I just feel like part of what she's doing, she's trying to stay relevant, trying to get people to listen, to get black folks to say, hey, I'll give reparations. Julian Castro has talked about this because he's been with HUD. So, yeah, but really quick, this presidential candidate who you probably won't see, Marianne Williamson, believes in reparations strongly.
Also, last year, March 18th, 2018, unarmed black man Stephen Clark was shot and killed by two racist terrorist cops in Sacramento, California. Mm-hmm. Just recently, the district attorney of Sacramento stated that she will not bring charges up against these two officers. It's a travesty. It's wrong. It's a 2019 lynching. Okay? It's a continuation of our oppression. This should be something that brings us together and keeps us together. The mother of this young man, we're giving you a spiritual hug. If you can feel us right now, if she hasn't seen this, please let her know that Melanated Politics, we are sending you God's blessing through the show. So rest in peace to Stephen Clark, unarmed black man, was killed in Sacramento, California, March 18th last year. Cops got off, according to the district attorney. Also, a good friend of mine, Nathaniel Taylor, has moved on. Nathaniel Taylor was known for playing the character of Rollo in Sanford and Son. He left a wonderful, beautiful family that I had a chance to meet. I know we're going to wrap it up. Nathaniel Taylor and I were in a play together. Nathaniel Taylor is one of the reasons why I speak with so much spirit and passion, because that's something Nathaniel Taylor taught me. We were in a play called Get Thee Behind Me in 2002. Myself, Nathaniel Taylor, Todd Bridges, Ernest Thomas, who played Raj off of What's Happening, produced by Sid Burston for Falcon Quest Productions. Peace to Nathaniel Taylor's family. Your memory will always be in my heart. I want to thank you, Nathaniel Taylor, Rollo, for teaching me everything you've taught me, and thank you for giving me the confidence to go on that stage when we played in all those, when we stepped on that stage in all those cities, and you showed me how to do it. Rest in peace, Nathaniel Taylor.
Yes, yes. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. This show today has been, we're going to piggyback on a lot of things next week because we're not done talking about a lot of these topics. I think for our audience, they know we're passionate about politics. We're passionate about our community, and we want people to be informed and tuned in, and just having your eyes open at all times, because if we're not going to have our eyes open and we're not going to communicate to each other, we're going to be doomed as a community.
So 75% of people on planet Earth are what? Melanated.
Melanated. Yes, indeed.
Politics is defined as war without bloodshed. That's why we call this show Melanated Politics. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for tuning in. One more time, thank you for the callers, Jay. Thank you for the callers, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I got to say it again. Thank you so much for tuning in to Melanated Politics, where our tongue is our gun and our wisdom is our ammunition.
Peace.
Peace.